Good morning from WKYT News. I'm Bill Bryant, and we welcome you to Kentucky Newsmakers. Later, Dr. Michael Karpf will reflect on his years leading UK healthcare. It's been a time of growth and a time to meet a lot of challenges. What has he accomplished and what's ahead for healthcare as the sands keep shifting? Dr. Karpf's perspective on that coming shortly. But first, Lexington has a well-known issue with homelessness. What you may not realize is that it's a growing problem statewide, and the growth is faster among older people and women who have no place to go. Polly Ruddick is the coordinator of the Office of Homelessness Prevention in Lexington. She has big challenges ahead and some major goals that she would like to see accomplished. Ruddick is well suited for the job, having done a statewide study on homelessness and worked in other areas to get services to those in need. And she joins us today. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
You know, we have a beautiful state. You're reminded of that on a beautiful weekend like this. The Bluegrass region is seen as very prosperous with the horse farms and all of the other things. And yet the challenges of homelessness are real. There's no doubt about that.
Yes.
What do you know that we should all know about that?
Well, I think, first of all, when you look at homelessness, it's not a face, it's someone's reality, and what they're lacking is a home. If you're shoeless, you get shoes. If you're shirtless, you get a shirt. Same thing with homeless. When you're homeless, you need a home. And a lot of people want to look at them and say, well, we need to work on their substance abuse or their mental illness first. And that's not necessarily true. In order to end homelessness, we need to get them housed and then support them. So I think when you try to educate the general public on homeless, it's not that they necessarily need a substance abuse recovery program on the street. They need a home to get that substance abuse recovery. You and I go home every night and we go to our homes and we deal with life easier because we have a safe and secure home, and these folks don't. And so once you get them housed, they can start dealing with what you and I deal with on a regular basis, and that's life.
So you would say we get the cart before the horse sometimes?
Sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes the general public really does.
The fact that more women and older Kentuckians are homeless may come as a surprise to some, but that was your finding when you did the statewide study.
Yeah, we do. Nationally and in Kentucky, our homeless population is growing older. 50% of our population is over the age of 55, which puts them into medical areas that you don't see when you're necessarily 30. It is very interesting to kind of deal with that new factor and non-traditional families and women coming in and grandparents taking care of children. Those new challenges or new areas, subpopulations of homelessness, is something we need to address.
And as you are trying to find homes for people, as you say, I mean, is that within the scope of your office to actually do that, other than to just get them sheltered for a time?
So my office doesn't do direct service. Yeah. Our role and how the administration and the council kind of looks at this office is a facilitator. So we bring everybody to the table from every aspect. So your federal funding from HUD, the VA, HHS, your private funded agencies, your hospitals, your correction system, your courts, your police. We bring everybody to the table as a facilitator to let everybody know what's going on. I recently just asked for, I wanted a top 10 names, our top 10 most critical here in Lexington, and everybody at the table can deal with those top 10 individuals, but it's multifaceted. So you have to bring everybody to the table. So this office kind of sets the strategic plan, implements very innovative programs to deal with the most critical, and then our agencies actually do the direct work. And we fund them. We have some funds that the city has set aside to help that, and we can find other grants and federal dollars to help in those areas.
Do the numbers surprise you in Lexington, given that apparently there are more homeless people in this city, in the heart of the Bluegrass, than in the largest city in the state, Louisville?
So we're a little, where Louisville does have some more resources than we do. They do get a little bit more federal funding than we do, and they have more access to permanent supportive housing than we do necessarily. The thing about Lexington is we are great, and so people from our surrounding counties can come to Lexington to receive services that they can't in rural Kentucky. And so we sometimes see an influx of people from other areas coming into Lexington to access resources. You know, you have 3 major hospitals here. Well, if you have unstable housing from where you come into Lexington, you're in the hospital, and while you're in the hospital, you lose that home. Lexington has the resources to help you.
Polly, what do you say to those who might say, you know, then that is a build it and they will come mentality, that in some ways homeless are attracted to the city?
I said that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. We are building something that's attractive. We're doing things that have positive outcomes. We're using Lexington as a model to get people into supportive housing. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing. I mean, we could sit here and say, they don't come because we are so bad. I mean, that's kind of the opposite of that. I think we are so connected in that world, and the agencies work so well together, and we are so outcome focused that people are driven here because they know they can get help, and that's not a bad thing.
Do you think, on the other hand, some of the surrounding cities may see an opportunity to abdicate any responsibility and say, well, you can go up the road to Lexington?
I think that each surrounding county, after visiting them and talking to them, they recognize some issues within their own county, and they do. You know, Clark County has a system in place for their citizens. You know, Nicholasville, Jessamine County has a system in place for those citizens that are in that county. I don't see any surrounding counties. I haven't, don't know of any surrounding counties that say, well, we'll just send you to Lexington.
What are your goals in this office that you now have accepted and seem to be really taking to? So
this office has been around for 3 years. They've started some really innovative programs in the last 3 years. We are still, we've touched the surface of our most critical homeless, the ones that are costing basically the system the most funds, and we have started to really intentionally work to get them permanently housed and get them stable. We will continue to do that. Our new projects is a medical respite program for those folks coming out of hospitals that don't necessarily need hospital level care or nursing home level care or inpatient rehabilitation, but they can't go back to the street and they can't go back to the shelter, and there's no permanent housing available at the time. So we are trying to work on a program and develop it with about 15 different partners at the table, so that we have a place for those critically in a medical need don't have to go back to the streets. And we will and so that's one project. We have some other projects that are in the kind of pipeline to deal with those critically in need, the aging population, the medically fragile, mental illness, mental health court still going on with amazingly positive results, getting people housed, saving the jail, some funds as far as days that they're spending. So as we move forward in the future, we're going to continue to work very housing focused case management, housing first models, housing first. Really push that agenda and be very intentional about getting these folks housed. And we got some programs that hopefully will roll out in the next couple of years that will do that.
For those who are out there in that situation and who are homeless, obviously there are times of the year when the elements are difficult. We're keenly aware of that in winter when it is so harsh. But now we have summer coming, and even this weekend the temperatures are zooming up out there, and we know it could be a hot summer ahead. How does the city deal with that?
So there's a couple things we do. My office has an emergency weather plan, and we recognized about 2 years ago that there was no coordinated effort to help individuals that did not have a place to go. So in the winter, we have the Hope Center runs a van. We have the Compassionate Caravan out of the Catholic Action Center, so that they can go around and identify people and say, come to the shelter and get warm. And the summer is kind of the same thing. So once the temperature reaches a certain point, 95 degrees, we kind of alert everyone and get them, because as you and I know, dehydration can really take its toll on your body, and we don't want you out there getting dehydrated with no water. And I always tell people if they have concerns or questions, they can always call our office and we can direct them where to go. But that is a partnership that is community-wide, and everybody recognizes that we need to have some plan in place for these folks that can't get out of the cold or the heat.
You are very deliberate about separating the panhandling issue that Lexington has been dealing with and homelessness. The city, of course, has been trying to offer some options to those who are out there asking for money. But you say that it's not necessarily that those folks are homeless.
We do want people to understand that they are two separate issues, and they are dealt with in two separate ways. The model that we have focused on was in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and we have implemented several of their innovative ideas, such as the in panhandling van to offer jobs. What they found was only 10% of the people who were panhandling were actually homeless. And we know in this community who's homeless and who's not. So if you ask these providers, they'll tell you, yeah, he stays in my shelter at night, or no, we don't know those folks. And so we need to make sure that the public is aware that they are two different issues, and there's two different solutions. And so when you talk about homeless and housing, that's not necessarily the same solution that's being implemented for panhandling.
Polly, whether you do this job as homeless coordinator for a year or 10 years or 20, what would you want said after your term, your tenure in this position, that you would like to have had accomplished?
That Lexington is a model for the nation on how to work together to really solve and end homelessness. We know that housing ends homelessness, and so we work very deliberately with the administration and the council to make that happen. Affordable Housing Trust Fund, I think this administration and this council is very well aware that there are long-term solutions. So in 10 years, if I'm still around, I want people to look at Lexington and say they recognize the solution, and they brought everybody together as a team in the community to work together to really implement positive change and permanent solutions.
Polly Ruddick, thank you for coming in from the Office of Homeless Prevention. It's a longer title than that, but we'll leave it there. It is a very long title. And it's a very important work, and we thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And coming next, we'll be back with UK's Vice President for Health Affairs for a few more days, Dr. Michael Karpf, who is getting ready to retire this week. Next on WKYT's Kentucky Newsmakers. Welcome back to Kentucky Newsmakers from WKYT. He arrived on the scene in 2003. Dr. Michael Karpf says Kentucky's health challenges were tremendous and the opportunity to address them was real, and that was a lure for him. Under Dr. Karpf's leadership, the University of Kentucky has invested close to $2 billion for construction, faculty recruitment, developing programs, and acquiring technology to improve health care. After these years in a fast-paced environment that included implementing changes under Obamacare and now seeing sands shifting again on the national and state approach to health coverage, Dr. Karpf is planning to retire later this year. He joins me now to look back and look ahead, and it's good to have you. Thanks for coming.
Nice to be here, Mr. Bryant.
You had anticipated potentially retiring here in June. The search continues, though, for your replacement.
Yeah, the search is in full swing now, and hopefully they're going to have someone identified rather quickly, and we'll help out until that person is identified and here.
Dr. Karpf, former UK President Lee Todd and his team recruited you to UK. You had a tremendous career at UCLA, the medical center out there, and some other locations prior to that. You were in what was considered the big time in medicine, and yet you had an interest in this job in Kentucky. Why?
Well, the reason I did is that UCLA, we were a big organization, but we were 2% of the marketplace. If UCLA disappeared, it wouldn't have been noticed. A number of hospitals would have picked up some business and life would have gone on. Here in Kentucky, I thought UK healthcare had the opportunity to organize healthcare for the entire Commonwealth, and certainly the eastern part of Kentucky when I first got here. And I thought it had the potential to have tremendous impact. And in some ways, I describe myself as a closet policy wonk. I want to try to figure out how you take good public policy and make it really work in the real world.
I know that was always important to Dr. Todd, who talked about the Kentucky uglies, the challenges facing the Commonwealth, and one of those was always the health of our people. Were you surprised by the profound issues you found when you came here?
I knew that the statistics and the numbers in Kentucky were not good. I didn't realize how significantly bad they were. So it clearly is a challenge. It's a challenge that can take a long time to address, and hopefully we're starting to make a dent in it now.
Have you been surprised at the self-imposed problems that many Kentuckians have with their own health?
There are a lot of issues in terms of lifestyle. You know, I think that we need to deal with smoking, we need to deal with obesity, we need to deal with sedentary lifestyles. But I think we're making inroads. We just have to keep our nose to the grindstone and make sure that we don't give up.
As you have recruited other faculty and healthcare professionals to Lexington and the other clinics that UK operates over the years, how often have you mentioned this sort of this mission of dealing with these profound health issues as being something that where they could come and make a difference?
Oh, I think almost everyone I've recruited has come here because they thought that if they could make it work here, it would not only impact Kentucky in the short haul, but actually would be a model for national healthcare systems in the future. So I think the importance of the University of Kentucky, or the University for Kentucky, as Dr. Capilouto calls it, in this Commonwealth, the importance of UK healthcare and healthcare in Kentucky, that's a real challenge and a real attraction for folks who want to make a significant contribution and a difference in their community.
As you have mentioned, the UK certainly has a major footprint on the health care in the state. It is often the place where people go for hope when it's the last resort. You know, and within the state, they're transferred from a local facility. It's a huge trauma facility. What has it been like for you to know that you have shouldered the responsibility for that for these years?
Well, I think that's one of the most gratifying things that we've done, Bill. What we did at the beginning is we did a strategic plan, and we said, gee, what we need to do on campus is we need to focus in on those very complex problems, be able to take care of them so folks didn't have to leave the state. You've heard me say that multiple times. And we also then needed to work with local providers and build relationships and keep appropriate patients in their communities. And that's been, I think, the secret to our success. If you take a look, in 2004, we had 19,000 discharges. This year, they'll be finishing up in a couple of weeks. We'll finish with 39,000 discharges. We've doubled, okay? 2004, we had 1,000 transfers from outside facilities. This year, we had 18 to 19,000 transfers from outside facilities. So we've become the backbone for a lot of providers, a lot of hospitals and doctors to take care of those patients that have just gotten beyond their capabilities. That makes us critical to Kentucky. We're in a position where we provide the kind of services that if we're not here, Kentuckians will suffer. So it's very important for us to keep focused on that and keep maintaining our success.
As you devised a strategic plan to deal with Kentucky's health woes, and you knew that you would be here for some time, but didn't know that it might be 14 years, but as you were looking into the future, what did you see, and do you think that you did a good job of meeting the goals that you set at that time?
You know, originally I thought I was going to be here 3 years, Bill.
Really?
I thought I was going to try out a few things, see if they worked, and it would be fun, and I'd go back either to the East Coast or West Coast. But Lexington is home, and we've really enjoyed our time in Kentucky, and I'll be staying in Kentucky. I won't be here 12 months of the year, but I'll be here quite a bit because I'm going to be coming back working part-time on projects I want to work with. Yeah, I do think that we've accomplished a number of our goals. As I said, one of our major goals was to build the programs that would keep people in Kentucky. And seeing that growth from 19,000 discharges to 39,000 discharges, I didn't anticipate that. I thought if we got to 26, 27, 28,000 discharges, we would have done a really good job. It just shows the need was great and the UK brand was very important. We've built strong relationships with a lot of providers, and we think we're building the backbone of a system that will provide rational care for Kentucky. So yeah, I feel pretty good about what we've done. I feel we've served the Commonwealth. There are challenges out there in the future, no question about it.
How important has it been to you to develop programs? Cancer and Alzheimer's research are done on campus. There's a lot going on there. You have continued to develop the heart program. How important has that been in what you've been able to do?
I think that's been critical, Bill. I think if I put a personal test to it, 2004 when I got here, there may have been some problems that if I personally got, I might have gone elsewhere. 2017, this point in time, I can't imagine almost anything I'd go elsewhere for healthcare than Northern UK healthcare in Kentucky. I think that's been a personal challenge. I think we've risen to that personal challenge, and I think that's a service to the community.
I want to talk to you in just a moment about the future, what you think is going to be happening in healthcare in the state, and what is coming with the reforms in healthcare. We'll be back with Dr. Michael Karpf, who is soon to retire as head of UK Healthcare, here on Kentucky Newsmakers in just a moment. Welcome back. Great to have you on WKYT here on Kentucky Newsmakers as we continue to visit with Dr. Michael Karpf, who is head of UK Healthcare and who is planning to retire when they can find a replacement. And we're saying you have big shoes to fill, and you said they're what, just 10 and a half? So that
size 10 and a half. They'll find somebody very good.
Certainly you have no doubt left an imprint over there. All right, depending on your political perspective in this country, the Affordable Care Act is either a great change that has substantially increased access to care, or a colossal failure that has limited people's choices out there. Do you have a perspective that you would share with us on that?
I think there are two issues in this country. I think we clearly need to get to universal health care. We owe it to our citizens to be able to have access to reasonable health care. We also have to get health care costs under control. Okay? And I think that the Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare, focused primarily on extending health care to folks, and did a pretty good job, got another 29 million people covered. It made some efforts at health care cost control, but we clearly, if we want to continue to expand health care and be able to afford it, we have to get healthcare costs under control.
And how do you control those costs when you require so much education of healthcare professionals? The buildings and facilities are very expensive to build and maintain. The research into new drugs and frontiers in medicine is a challenge, isn't it?
It is a challenge, but there's a fundamental flaw, in my opinion, in the system, and that is we've been in a fee-for-service system. You get rewarded exactly for what you do. The more times you turn the style, the more you make, and that tends to reward utilization. And we're a high utilization state. We're a high utilization country. So I think there are ways of creating efficiencies and decreasing utilization and making healthcare more affordable. Now, I have a particular philosophy. I sort of think that we ultimately have to work under some kind of fixed budget. Okay, fixed budgets bring discipline. It's like at home, there are a lot of things I like to do, budget just won't allow it. Okay, so once you have a fixed budget, then you can start understanding and pushing people and encouraging people to work on greater efficiencies, make sure that what they're doing is absolutely necessary. And so I think that that's a direction that the country will actually go, maybe a little faster, maybe a little slower over the next 5 or 10 years. And I think the budgeting process for healthcare and coming to fixed budgets and putting hospitals and doctors at risk, rewarding them for quality, will actually bring utilization down and make it possible to expand healthcare coverage to more and more people.
You have been involved in the arts. You've even brought the arts into the hospital over there at UK when you could do that. Will you continue to be involved in that endeavor?
Oh yes, I think it's the humanities program. It's art, it's music, it's landscaping, and I think it's made our place a human place. A place where people, when they come into our place with their patients or families, they're scared. We need to help them relax a little bit. My staff works extremely hard, and they need an environment where they can relax. Part of that is the architecture of sitting areas where they can get together. Part is landscaping and the openness, and part of it is music and art. And that's I think that's worked great. And yes, I'm going to be spending time raising money, because when you do arts and music, you can't take that out of the operating budget. That has to be from commitments from the private sector, and we've raised a bunch of money for the arts program, and so I hope to be able to raise money to endow that, so that when things get tough, they'll never be challenged. It's a real fundamental interest, and I think it's worked extremely well.
You've told us that in your you came to Kentucky, you found a home, and that you plan to mainly remain here in your retirement. As you leave the University of Kentucky and the healthcare system later this year, and continue to write and work and do other research as you've said you would do, what would you like to have said about your tenure leading the UK healthcare?
Well, you know, I'm going to be coming back part-time. I'm going to take a little time off, write some papers, and I'll be coming back part-time to do some health policy research and see if I can help think through a rational healthcare system for Kentucky that might be applicable elsewhere. And I'm not a big believer in legacies, but if people can say, hey, that place has made it possible for me to get health care in Kentucky and not have to go elsewhere, and it's made it easy for my family, I'll feel good about that.
All right. Dr. Karpf, thank you so much for coming by. We appreciate it.
Always nice to be with you.
If they don't find your replacement, we'll have you back. All right?
They'll find my replacement.
Or maybe soon when you do that interesting writing, because it sounds like you have some things ahead for you.
We do.
We appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Kentucky Newsmakers on WKYT. We'll see you bright and early this week on WKYT This Morning. We start bright and early at 4:30. We're up when you're up. Have a good week ahead.